Hi everybody, this is Ardeshir Radpour from the 501st Legion, Southern California Garrison, Los Angeles Squadron. I want to talk to you guys about my first order build. I've been getting a lot of questions about how I did certain things and also maybe a little bit of a review of the armor. I had a previous Anovos kit that was not released that had quite a bit of features that I really liked. And I was surprised to see that when the new Anovo came, they maintained those features. And actually made a few things a little bit better. So this will be the Last Jedi / Rise of Skywalker armor build and review. All right, everybody, so let's start with the helmets. There is the Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker version, and then there's the Force Awakens version of the helmets. The Force Awakens being the first one, and then they switched over to the other ones. There's the Premier helmets, and then there's the standard issue helmets. These are the standard issue helmets. These are the Premier helmets. We'll just go through them real quick one by one. So if you look at these two helmets, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, they did an excellent job on these. I had the fortune of wearing Rise of Skywalker helmet and armor, and this is spot on, exact to what we wore. Those helmets are polyurethane. They're hollow on the inside. They have very rudimentary padding in there, and that's just for stunt purposes, filming purposes. These are very well padded on the inside, and these are made from fiberglass, so they're considerably heavier, but I'm used to wearing helmets, and that's not an issue for me. And also, it kind of helps keep the helmet hunkered down on your head a little bit more. So let's go through the differences of it real quick for those of you guys who don't know, and then obviously that'll translate later into the armor as well. As you can see, there's a difference in the front frown right here. There's a couple of other differences as well. This is being Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi. There's also the teeth in here. There's a difference between what is by some people called an aerator or voice coder on this helmet. The Last Jedi version has a neat little cut that's through it. You won't notice it. No one will notice it. I don't think it has anything really of that importance to really point out. If anybody wants to be that accurate, they can really look into that. But mainly it's the shape of the nose, the teeth. There was a shape difference in the helmets before, but now they're the same. And also the little greeblies that are on the side of the helmet. And here's a little bit more of a profile shot. These little greeblies, there's 4 of them that go across the helmet, where this one you can see doesn't have that little cut, and the back is cut a little bit different. And this one has got that little box cut in the front of it. Also, there's one other little difference from these helmets than the ones that we wore in. That's the little rubber lining at the bottom. There were a couple of helmets that had the rubber lining at the bottom. I believe Finn's helmet had one. Maybe the one that Daniel Craig wore had it. There was a couple of them that did have these rubber linings. The new Anovo added this rubber lining, and I think it's a great addition to it. But the rest of it, this little line here, all of it is pretty spot on. It's accurate. Unlike the Black Series, it doesn't have that weird little cut that comes down here. It's actually situated where it needs to be. So this helmet is, I have to say, hands down, one of the best helmets I've seen in anything. I mean, the comparable to being something that is so accurate would be, say, RS helmets that are off those molds and so forth. But for a helmet, you know, if I put this down next to the one that I wore, you couldn't tell the difference unless you picked it up and then looked inside. And actually, this is much nicer. So let's talk about some of those differences here. Again, this is for Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, but I want to go over the Premier helmets and then the standard helmets. And these are the standard helmets. There's one thing, unfortunately, I won't be able to confirm for you guys. These helmets, there is a slight difference. This is pretty spot on with regards to the Force Awakens helmet. I'm going to move that aside real quick, and then we'll come into this one. And this one, you can see the standard still has that bottom curve, which is basically the Force Awakens helmet, and then they just replaced it and added the nose plate and then the greeblies that are correct for this one to be the Last Jedi version. 501st isn't a stickler yet about it. I don't know if that will change, but if you can tell, there is a distinct difference. And also, the other one that I want to go over, and it's one of my favorite helmets, is the Executioner. So the Executioner and the Last Jedi Rise of Skywalker helmet, they're the exact same helmet. It's just it has this big black stripe that goes all the way down it. And this thing is a stunning, absolutely stunning work of art. So if you guys are in the market and you decide you are gonna order those helmets from me, who's such a stickler on certain things, I would definitely go with the Premier. It's a lot more expensive, that I will say, but you do get that look, which just, it makes such a difference in how the helmet looks. So I would recommend the Premier versus the Standard, but if you can't, this Standard is an excellent helmet. It's very light. There's almost no weight to it. It's amazing looking. I personally don't think that looks bad at all. I actually like the way that it looks. So if you go with this, you're doing great. If you go with the Standard version, you're doing great. So at this point, I'm going to only focus on the Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker style helmet, and the Force Awakens style is going to step out, except for two little discussions that will come up that are armor related, and then we'll get to that in a second. So the next thing I want to discuss is going to be the neck seal. This is an excellent quality neck seal. The material feels exactly like what the screen used ones are. It's 11 rings, so it's screen accurate to Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, although there were some 8-ring neck seals there as well. I saw them, I handled them myself. I don't know why. Maybe that just had to do with somebody having a shorter neck or it having a problem. But this is pretty spot on. This neck seal is also sealed via Velcro in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and swap mine out for zippers. I'm just going to cut it and add a zipper in it, and then the zipper fixes it, where this one you have a little bit more variance in what you can do if you want it tighter, looser, whatever. I know what my neck size is going to be, and I'm going to put the zipper in. And so there's also a discussion of how this is worn. This being the front, and then in some photos you see this being the front, where you see the zipper in the front. And I'll give you my interpretation of that, and because I saw it firsthand, I saw what was going on, even when we were wearing the armor on Obi-Wan, not the First Order, but the others. A lot of times the guys needed to go to the restroom, and they would just rip the neck seal off. The neck seal for us was pinned down to our suits, just with like a little tag gun. These weren't. But they would take it off, and then they would put their undersuit back on, and then they would have to zip it up, and it was just a lot easier for them to zip it up front. So I know that was going on. So that's why you see sometimes the zippers up front, sometimes the zippers in the back. However, what I will say for dressing purposes, it's better to wear the zipper up front just because of the way that the armor is made. If you look at the helmet slopes, so when it comes down up front, you don't really get to see in here. So zipper is hidden, but because it's sloped up in the back, you'll see the helmet slope down towards the front, and you have a nice clean view in the back. So for all of you guys that are going to be dressing in your First Order, I would recommend this being the back, and it's easier to zip up front, but you can do it either way. I know FISD has got his own opinions on it. Love the guys at FISD, and I do support FISD standards. So if they say, hey, we want the zippers in the front, then the zippers go up front. It is a good clean look. And I will question some things here and there, but this is one of those that I think it's just a better way of wearing it. So that's my take on the neck seal. It's actually a really nice neoprene material, and this is that leatherish material. I don't know what it is actually, and the inside is lined with a fabric. So it's quite a nice neck seal. It's up to you guys if you guys want to cut this out and put in a zipper. It's not necessary. It fits really nice. It's super easy to get down. It's easy to take on and off. I just prefer the zipper because that's what we wore, and that's what I just want to do. So that's the story on the neck seal. We're going to work our way down. So I say this with a huge smile on my face because I think this is what everybody's been waiting to see, is this chest armor. This is unpainted. I wanted to go down the path of doing this and seeing if I can make this armor without having to Bondo and paint, and I was able to do it. So it's it's without further ado that I'll get into this with you guys. So I built this as accurate as to what I remember wearing and what I've confirmed. There are some differences that I will tell you guys, and all the differences that I discuss are wearing armor for us when we're in a costume group wearing it over and over and over again, and ours is made out of ABS, versus armor that's made out of urethane. I mean, those suits of armor are around $40,000. So let's just keep things in real perspective here for what we are. I know a lot of people like to get into accuracy and all that stuff. You want to build it as accurate as possible, but you want to build it so that you can wear it and you can use it for the purposes that you intend on. So this is what I have done. So let's just start with the armor. It's not painted. It's ABS. It's polished. There is the front of the chest that comes up, and then it's welded together with the back. And then the seam is somewhere around here, depending on how you cut it. And so what I did was I overlaid them, glued it down, and I used ABS slurry very, very sparingly. And then I sanded it down with 600 grit, then down to, I think it was 1200 grit, and then finally down with 2000 grit until I got it as smooth as possible. And here's an important aspect of this. Don't discard the 2000 grit sandpaper that you use that has the ABS dust on it. When you replace that sandpaper, keep sanding it down until you get a smooth finish. Then grab that 2000 grit sandpaper that has that ABS polish and you buff as hard and as fast as you can. And it actually works itself like a rubbing compound, and it buffs out the shoulder so that you don't have any issues at all. So then let's get to the next pieces of it. This is really important. Well, let's actually discuss the pauldron while I still have this thing together. The pauldrons on the screen used ones are attached with a ton of Velcro. They stay on the armor. That's how they're seen. I don't want Velcro all over this. I want to have the option of wearing it and taking it off, wearing it and taking it off. So what I did was I attached magnets. So I have magnets that are underneath here, rare earth magnets that are through here that are very strong. I'll give you an example. I have them placed here as well. And so when I go to put the armor on, it just snaps and that's it. So the whole thing is held on together with magnets. And then I can remove it just as easily. So what I will tell you guys is I had to shape my pauldron. The pauldron comes in its standard shape. The armor is fit for me. So if I do, and I have not yet shaped this, if I do not shape it, as you can see, it stands up. So then what you need to do is use a heat gun and actually bend this down so that it fits there. Okay, so that's the note on the pauldron. And now let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. I went a little bit overboard on this, so don't be intimidated by this. You can do this in as simple a way as possible. There's many ways to hook this up. The sides of the armor were connected via Velcro. So was the chest to the front chest piece. I chose to go with magnets on mine as well so that I can just bring it up and attach it. I used to have it with buttons and snaps through the side here, and it just really pins it down nice and sharp. I chose to go against that this time, only for personal favor. Now let's get into what we're seeing here. There's a lot of debate. It's no debate whether ram's horns or this. The ram's horns were cut out so that some of the armors could be easier to get into for specific talent. And you get that ram's horn that we're used to seeing on it. This is the actual chest that was used, and it is filled with Velcro, and that thing comes on and it just Velcros down. So how I did mine was, I went a little bit OCD on this, but I put magnets in here and I created custom plates to cover the magnet so that the ABS rubs on ABS. And I'll show you where that is. And these are the two magnets for the front pauldron. I cut this out and I just put in a fabric behind these pills. These pills are nice and deep. I did not cut this out. I cut this out on my other armor. I did not cut it out, and I used the stickers that come with it because they actually were stickers. But I will eventually either paint it or cut it out. But I think for this one, I'm going to just paint and leave it as close to what I remember it being. So what I did was I took round discs and I took two of them, cut a gusset in the middle of one, sunk the magnet inside of it, and then glued this disc on there. So there's a very strong rare earth magnet in there. And this comes and attaches to the magnets that are behind these square boxes right here. And then what I did was, so that they don't fall off with those, kind of can't see it, maybe you can see it through here. What I did was I created a little crossbar ABS to glue it down so that the magnet doesn't fall off. And then you can see the magnets inside there for my pauldrons. The one that's right here, and then the one that's across the back. That one I left exposed because there's just really not much going on to it. And then as you can see, I have it all ABS slurried and smoothened out. One thing I will tell you is that the plastic that's here is larger on the screen ones. I wanted to try on this one to make it thinner so that there's less plastic, or ABS I should say, that's going to crack. Because as we know, we pull this armor over our head and you start to get cracks here. So one of the things that I did was I cut out a piece of ABS to go behind this whole thing and reinforced it from here all the way down and around here. Then I cut the hole with a Dremel, and I put my tabs in there, and then the plastic tab. The plastic tab is 2 layers of ABS that I did. The actual movie ones are metal. And there's some outstandingly nice ones made by Tony at UK's Wrath. I highly recommend them. I'll tell you why I went with ABS and just an ABS strip, okay? The reason I did that is because I want this armor to flex a little bit. If it doesn't flex through here with the metal that you put in there, you're gonna start getting stress cracks through here. And also, to address it, cut the sides as much as you want. It doesn't matter. I mean, I saw ones that were cut way open. I may actually even cut mine further open. That chest plate comes and covers this anyway, and you can see some of them, they would loop in. So this is a big question, because the way that it comes, these actually come and overlap each other. And let me tell you why we want to cut this open with ABS, because the urethane armor, they literally pry it open. It's just like a piece of rubber almost. You pry it open and you get in it. That's all of the armor that we see on set. The biceps, the thighs, everything, whether it's Rogue One armor or First Order armor, they pry it open. And it's got a lot of flexibility in it. And it's about that thick. It's very, very thick. So the armor, it was made to be pulled and pried, and we cannot do that with this. So when I put this armor on, I'm very careful how I swim into it. I make sure that I don't pull it too far apart. I gave myself enough gap. I did not cut too much off the back. I cut a little bit off the back, but if you need more room, you cut more off the front and you'll be fine, because as long as this curve is there and it goes in, that other piece comes and overlaps it, and it's good to go. One more thing is, for this is the shoulder bells. And this we'll get into with regards to the biceps as well. There's this extra piece, that we have to cut out and put in there. Again, I just used the, usually I make them out of ABS, but you don't need to go that far with it. You can just use the webbing material, glue the snaps on, it comes in and it snaps in, and then that tab is there. It keeps it at that line and above. And then the snaps go in there, and the snaps are just a heavy duty elastic. And I chose to go with the snap system because that's what they have on it. And our armor, with the clone armor, the Rogue One armor, the First Order armor, we went with a snap system. There's a clasp system. There's a snap as well. There were armors with snaps in it, but the later ones, they went with some buckles. It's just easier. It goes up, snaps in for the costumers, and you're good to go. So basically, you just snap it in, and then the shoulder stays above. So as you rotate, it has the ability to go above it. Now, one thing I will say is there was also suits later that I saw that were not cut through here. The tab was, and the tab was not cut through the base either. The base was cut out. It was completely cut out, and the tab was bracketed in there. And then these guys just came out from underneath and went over it. Once again, I prefer this because I'm adding a little bit of strength to it the way the original ones were, strictly for the ABS, not at all to do with anything to do with accuracy. The urethane armor, again, like I said, it can flex. You can pull that thing up to here, and it's just not going to go anywhere. So I would recommend this if you guys are going to do it. If not, and you want to leave this solid, just have the tab come down, come around, and come back up and balance itself. It's a little bit of heat work that you have to do to get the tab to come in and do that, but that's why I did it. And the ABS for me is just as strong as I need it to be. It's exceptionally strong. This will not break before this does, so I don't need to go with a heavy metal tab that goes on it. Okay, so that's basically the way the chest is set up. And like I said, for me, it was just easier because the Velcro would just grab the sides, and then the top is immediately attached to itself. Now, one thing I did have to do is I did have to heat this up because it stuck out like that. And I heated it up very carefully and just kind of curved it down so that I would get that flush curve that comes and sits on it like that. So there's the chest. We're gonna go on to the torso next. So if you guys have any other questions, you can just message me directly. I'm more than happy to help you guys out with. But I just want to end on this note. Use the ABS that you took off from that particular piece of armor. So for example, the front chest and the back. Use the ABS from there because at least you know it's the same pull ABS. You don't know what they're pulling out of sheets and sheets of ABS. You know the color will match. Dilute it in clear acetone. Get a nice paste going. I use a thin detail brush, a very, very small brush. You don't have to gob it on and make a huge giant mess. All I'm doing is welding those two pieces together. After I glued it, I leave a little open space in the front. I weld those two pieces together, sand it down with like a 400 or a 600, then move down to from 600 to 800 or 1200. You keep smoothing it down until you get to 2000. When you're done with the 2000, take the actual dirtied up piece of 2000, buff that thing out. Once it's buffed out, you can use the clear liquid polish that you use to polish the headlights on a car. Don't use a yellow rubbing compound or any other stuff. It will yellow the armor. That compound will get in there, and if there's any pits and pores in it, it will stay in there, and you'll have this weird yellow line that runs across that armor. So you can use that 2000 grit to polish it up. And then one more thing. If for whatever reason you have a little spot that you're concerned about and you're like, I kind of want to get rid of it, if you have access to an airbrush, just the Tester's high gloss white paint matches this perfect. And you can just spray it on and just cover that little area, and you won't even be able to tell that it was there. So that's on the chest. We're going to move on to the torso next. All right, guys, so we're at the torso, and this is actually a really fun part of this armor. The Denuo Novo armor comes with all of these little tassets already cut into it, and the plastic, I highly recommend keeping it. It's actually really nice, and it'll help keep the belt in place. And then there's also questions of snaps versus Velcro. I can tell you guys they switched over to Velcro because they weren't getting what they needed with regards to the snaps. There were snaps all over it, and they just weren't getting it. So I'll tell you guys what I did. I did a mix of it. Again, this is taking into consideration that this is ABS armor versus urethane armor. When you first look at the torsos on that, they look about like this big, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to fit into that. They just pry it open, they put it on, you're like, oh my God, and they zip it up and they call it a day. I built mine like the new generation ones where there was this weird fancy harness system with meshing and web. Tony, UK's Wrath, has got a phenomenal build on FISD for that. Anybody who's a member can go and take a look at that. I did mine like Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. So there's this little cut that I did on mine here, attached these rings and then buckles, and then there are straps that come over it. The straps are padded. I just used my own padding, a very thin, low padding that crisscross. They cross it in the back, they come straight down, and they strap down. But let's get into the torso real quick. So the torso, I cut the plastic tabs off. I have some screen leather pieces that were gifted to me. So what I did was I did it in my own version. I have one snap in front for the belt, and then you could Velcro it and it'll really hold it in place. And I have two snaps on the side that I use to attach the belt to. The cod piece goes underneath this, and it's snapped to it, and then it goes around, and then I added Velcro to the sides here that you see. Now we'll get to the back. Of course, I cut off the last two pieces of the last two tabs, and I'll tell you guys why. And then I have the zipper system. And then I did my own version of this, but there are reinforced areas in all of the armors the way the new ones are done. There's a reinforced ledge. I made my reinforced ledge with these two little tabs so that when my thermal detonator comes on, it doesn't slide around once it hunkers down. But really what it is I have if you look, let's do it this way, there's Velcro on the inside, and then there's 2 sheets of heavy canvas, and then a zipper. And what that does is it allows me to adjust this. I can move it out or in as you gain or lose weight. So obviously this is at my ideal weight, which is 170 pounds. I'm 5'10", 170 pounds. But if I ever lose weight, I can tighten it up. If I ever gain weight, I can widen it out a little bit. And this is exactly how the armor is. You open it up and they zip it right down. And let me just show you why this is so nice. In this particular case, even with the ABS, I can really open it up and get in. And the reason why I didn't do magnets the way you see a lot of people do is because you don't have that flexibility in shifting that arm around on a day-to-day basis. Say you have, sorry guys, I got a little, I can just zip down in my armor, which is not happening right now. So my zipper is getting a little stuck. Anyways, you just zip it down and call it a day. I added extra snaps back here so I can remove the entire shoulder harness. Again, once again, they come over and they crisscross. Now let's talk about these boxes. These boxes are amazing. They're really sharp. They're resin cast boxes. You do have to paint the boxes. The boxes come white, but they're matte white. So what I used was bare gloss white paint. It's perfect. These particular boxes were painted for me by a friend who used automotive paint for it, but a bunch of the other stuff that I painted later on, I have another suit as well with the boxes and greeblies was just bare gloss white, and it's amazing. And it doesn't do that little crackling and peeling that the 2X does, the Rust-Oleum 2X. I'll never use that again. The bare just goes on, beautiful, smooth, hardens up, and it looks like automotive paint. So once they're on, they're screwed in. You can see it through here. You can see the little screws that go through them in the bottom. So you can see those screws. I will say this to you guys, I glued and added extra screws. I'm never taking these boxes off. There's no point in it. So what I did was I put a CA glue. I love CA glue. I put the CA glue on and I put it on and I screwed them in nice and tight, and I actually put the CA glue in the screw holes as well. And pre-drilled them. There's a slot there. Pre-drill them a little bit so that you don't risk cracking the boxes. The only thing I will say is in the stickers that they include for you, I cut out my own black sticker for this. A lot of people are drilling them out, putting fabric and doing all that stuff. I didn't choose to do that. This one here, I put a little black piece in the back so that it stays black when you can see through it. Now, also same thing with the side here. The side armor, it's got a nice little overlap that you come in and you lay on it so you don't have to put in your own tab. But once again, it's all ABS slurry. So you put ABS slurry on there and you do the same buffing technique and you get as close as you can. Now, I didn't worry too much about up here. You can see that there's a little bit of a difference up there in how it joins. I didn't worry too much about that because it's covered to about here. All I need to do is show that there's no seam here and here. And once again, that was ABS slurry. So that is the torso. All right, guys, so let's get to the next piece, which is the cod piece. This is the cod piece that comes with the armor. This is made for Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. If you're doing Force Awakens, this is the shape, and you guys can see the distinct difference. So if you are doing this armor build and your armor comes with this piece, you have the option of switching it out for this. You can get that either from Denua Nova or Imperial Surplus. He has them. So you have to make a decision on what you're going to do, but there's a distinct difference between the cod pieces. And you won't be approved because the armors are slightly different. So this is the Force Awakens. This is Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. This applies to the executioner as well. You can see it's a little bit more tapered. You can see I have the snaps, and then that goes underneath it and it snaps in just like that. Okay. I have two thermal detonators out here. These are both from Denuo Novo. And so let me show you. These are really, really nice. It's heavy. So as you can see, my butt piece, or the posterior piece, is attached to it. This is how they are done on the new generation armors, the clone armor, the first order armor, and the Rogue One armor. So the little return that's here, mine is exaggerated. The actual screen ones are very small. I don't like that. And I also lined mine with a neoprene that's back here that's flush, so it doesn't cause a raise. But basically, what I did was I took a piece of, and I highly recommend this to everybody, I took a piece of flat ABS and I glued it on the inside of this piece to just reinforce this back plate. Then I glued the webbing straps on, and then I glued this separate piece, and then I put this liner on. This is screwed into the back. This is a solid piece of a resin thermal detonator. This is the way that the Force Awakens was done. So if you go to the Force Awakens one, you're gonna have to put a little round white strip here. But we're talking about Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. This is the way that was done, okay? Why do I have two of them here? Because the actual approval now is gonna be changed, and even for the movie, this is what they did. They hollowed it out. And so you can see it's the same build. It's got the webbing and all of that stuff in the top piece. But the difference is that this is now removable. And to reduce the weight, that's what they did. I lined mine with a little bit of neoprene just to keep it black, as well as for the see-through here on it. But it also helps grab this in there. And kind of what I did for mine is I kind of cheated it so that I can have Force Awakens as well as Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker style. It does remove a lot of the weight, and basically what I did was I took a piece of pipe and I put a ABS cap on it on both ends, took a file and rounded it out and smoothened it a little bit so it's not so sharp edged, and I painted one end white and left the other end black, and it goes right in. So there is the thermal detonator, and how that comes in, just so you guys are aware, is this comes in over the top and sits down just like that on the armor, okay? And then the belt comes around and pins this whole thing down on the armor so you get that flush pinned look to it, and it keeps it from sliding up. That's why I added that little extra lip, by the way, just in case you do get a little bit of a slide up, you can see that. Also, you can see how these little tabs up here that I made keep it from sliding around, okay? So you can put Velcro here. You don't really need to, because these lips will keep it in place. And once it comes in, it pins down nice and flush against the armor, and you're good to go. So that's how the thermal detonator system should work. It really is the best system. I see a lot of people snapping this onto the back. It's just too much. And then Velcroing this, and then it never aligns. This aligns perfectly with all the angles and lines that you have on your detonator. Okay, so that's the thermal detonators, torso, cod piece. Again, remember, if you're going Last Jedi, this is the cod piece that the armor comes with. If you're going Force Awakens, you're going to have to go with this, and also have the little white circles on the white ring around the other side of the thermal detonator. So this is complete 100% the belt that comes with the Denuo Novo kit. Minus this particular pouch. The one that comes with the kit is actually too short, so I had to get an extra pouch for it, and I got that from Trooper Bay. Really nice pouch. It actually matches the other one. I'm gonna start with these real quick. This is the long free floater. This is the little short one. You guys don't have to do this. I made a little ABS box. I cut out 4 pieces of ABS, well 5, including the bottom. It made a little box so that I can carry my stuff in, but also it really kind of keeps a nice solid square shape for it. Same thing for this one. And also these are absolutely stunning. These are all resin casts. They're super sharp boxes that you rivet on to the belt. And then I want to get into something about the belt with you guys as well. But these two boxes here, the bottom halves are black. These ones are not. As you can see, they're resin. They're really nice and sharp. They're cut and they're screwed in. Here are the snaps that I will get to you guys about. The whole underlying part of the belt is Velcro lined. So a couple things about this. The belt stops here and then the buckle is visible. I had the extra piece from the other end that I cut off and I glued across this so that this is nice and flush. If it's ever visible, you're not really seeing the buckle. So that when it comes and buckles in, that's all that you're seeing, and this sits over it. Actually, this is the one that sits over this, so you don't see it, but just in case it slides, you're barely seeing anything. That's kind of how that goes on. But what I wanted to tell you guys is, so this is the snaps. I glued the snap in to the belt, and this is the snap that snaps into the side where the buckle is. I really wanted that to be nice and secure. What I did for the other pieces is, since we have Velcro throughout this, it grabs the other Velcro pieces, but I attached some snaps to Velcro backing, and that allows me to adjust this belt. So if there's ever a little bit of a hang, I can actually take this Velcro piece off, move it up and down, and get that belt to sit nice and flush along that torso piece, so that it's always running flush. There isn't a hang, and I'm not seeing that spacing. So all in all, this is the belt. This is the way that it would sit. This piece comes around on this side, but this is kind of the way that it sits. But I have something else I want to show you guys, and we're going to see this again. There's another belt that I'm going to be making. So here's the belt, and this is just, it's a very specific piece of rubber ribbed matting. And basically what I did was put on a buckle. I'll cover the same thing again. I put on a buckle, it's glued back in on itself. And this one is done up like this. This is something that I'm going to use for my leggings, and I'll explain that to you, because the armor is attached, the thigh armor is attached to the torso. And I use the same material to create a belt that I'll hang the straps on, and you guys will see it, to hang the thigh pieces off of. It just gives it a little bit more durability, and I don't want that weight hanging off the torso. But the other reason is because I'm going to be making another one of these belts, and those belts are actually lined. It's got this kind of a neat little neoprene style lining to it, so it kind of gives it a little bit of a cush, and it gives the belt a little bit of bulk. It's really not necessary. Later on I will be doing that. It's just because I'm so OCD about that when it comes to the other kit. This one is just the thin rubber with the Velcro that's nicely stitched in for you guys already. You won't have to worry about that, and it really does grab the belt and make it sit in place nice and steady. So that's where I added those two Velcro pieces in the back of the armor, and then the snaps I can make that adjustable, because you'll see the front will always have some play because of the weight of the boxes, and I just want to be able to adjust that and not have it permanent in case there's some sag in it or something like that. I can always move those snaps. So that's the belt in short. Okay, so let's talk about the arms. I'm going to start with the gloves first. These are just Indoor Finder gloves or Imperial boots. Has some really nice gloves as well. You want to make sure that the pinky doesn't have that white thing on it, but it's important that these are there, and black stitching on the palm. These hand plates are not the De Novo ones. The De Novo ones are really, really nice. They're light, they're ABS, just like the armor, but I chose to go with some screen molded ones that Dan provided. They're beautiful. Same thing with some clips and greeblies on the armor are screen molded ones. But you can just see how sharp and nice and deep cut that is, and the forms are exactly the way that they need to be. Again, the De Novo ones are phenomenal. They're nice, they look great, they're beautiful. This just adds that little extra touch. So let's get to the other piece, which is the bicep. This is actually an awesome, a really good piece of work, because a lot of the armor that you see, that this is one piece, and it's not. This is actually separate on this, the way that it was. So this piece is what comes down. You glue it here, and then this part's glued down on mine, and I'll tell you guys why. But you don't have that seam that you have to fill here. Sometimes you do in other kits. So if you do, you have to weld and do all that nonsense. This is just nice and smooth, and then you have the proper lines here, and then you have this overlap. So this overlap is going to be the same overlap as you see in the thigh, as well as the inside of the shins. The reason why mine is glued down is because I don't want that flex. And the screen armor has pieces of rubber band on the inside that pulls it together. So they literally pry it open, you stick your arm in there, and it kind of expands and contracts around your arm. And we don't want that with ABS. It's gonna be flimsy. If you Velcro it, you're gonna see too much of a gap. It's just too much of a mess to deal with. So that's what you wanna do, is find the size that's gonna work for you with your gaskets, whatever you guys are using, and we'll get to that later. Find whatever's gonna work for you, and then we'll make it happen. In this particular case, I have some rubber gaskets here. As you can see, they're special rubber gaskets. I'll just leave it at that. I chose to use Velcro with mine as opposed to a snap system. I need to be able to adjust those up and down depending on what I'm doing with that armor. So I just like that flexibility. So I use a long strip of Velcro on the inside of the armor, and then I can align this, bring it around, or shift it, and so I can get that proper alignment. So and then here is the snap, the way that it was done on the armor that I wore, and it just comes up and snaps in, and that's fixed in place. I used not a webbing, but an elastic band, because I want a little bit of flexibility. And guys, let me emphasize that. In our armor, there's certain areas that you want some flex, and there are certain areas that you don't want flex. This is one of those, because if it doesn't give here, it's gonna give someplace else, and usually that's gonna be in your armor, and there's gonna be a crack. So that's with regards to the biceps. Now let's get to the forearms real quick, and this is kind of another piece that a lot of people are interested in. I'm going to bring in a little something extra here for you guys to see, and you'll see the differences in these forms. So you see that cut versus this cut. This is the proper cut. I did this cut for a different reason. I built this as close to as what I remember, and what I confirmed with a lot of people. There's many different cuts that you see here. There's that long drop down and straight across that they call the thin cut. It was in specific armor that he can get that kind of flexibility. And then you see some of them that are a little bit more round, and some of them that are a little bit more dished in. There's a lot of opinions regarding that. Those opinions are nonsense. They're just cut based on the flexibility of that particular stunt performer or whatever it might be. They were all pretty much, straight across, or slightly bowed out, but straight across. And so what I had to do is I had to build this up. And on the inside, you can see where I had to actually build it up piece by piece. So it's 1, 2, 3 pieces here, and then same thing on the outside. And then I did the ABS slurry and everything like that to get that shape to be like that. Okay. The reason why I did this one, these are both de novo. The reason why I did this one this way is because on specific troops, I wanted a little bit more flexibility. So I wanted to have just that little groove that fit with the bicep, so I can have a little bit more flex in it. Now I'm going to stay with this one for a second, and just to point out some things before I get back to the other forearm. I wanted this to be as accurate looking, again, details that are not necessary, as accurate looking as I can, minus that, which is pretty close, but to the screen ones. So that's an actual screw. That's the actual little hex screw that's in there. And then the proper clips. And then if you can see here, there's that split in the middle, and then there's these little tabs that come down the side. That's how it looks on the TLJ and TROS, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, the way they were built, because they worked a little bit differently. In Force Awakens, the whole plate lifted up, where in these, just this piece lifted up. These are fixed, and I didn't need to do anything to it. I can slide my hand all the way through it, and then I'm set, and then you can see where this functions for me so that I can move it. So that's the purpose of that forearm. But because I can't leave anything alone, and I got to be OCD about everything, let's go to what I did with this. I had some flexible, it's like a urethane made Picatinny rails. Once again, they were custom made for me. I won't say how and where, but again, there's that actual hex screw. I used to paint it black for those approvals, but that's that hex screw. And if it's not flexible, you can't do what I'm about to show you. The ones that come with the kit are resin. They're very nice, but they don't flex. They're like the Greeblies, where this one flexes. And that allows me to lift and move it over so I can get in. So I can actually move this over, and there is what that split is. So you can see that split, and there's a zipper in here that I can unzip and zip up. So if I unzip it, I can pop my hand in there, and this will actually give. And if I zip it, it'll come down and it'll stay closed. Now, one thing I will tell you guys, there were a couple of different variations that I saw this. Ones that opened up and there was, this zipper thing wasn't here, and there was a ton of Velcro, and Velcro came and held it down. As you can tell, I did mine with magnet. And the reason why I did that with magnet is because I want it to be nice and flush, but also because, once again, grabbing this thing and cranking with the amount of strength that Velcro has, you're putting a lot of torque on this armor, and I don't want to do that. So I went with that magnet on it because it allows me to do this with it. And I did that on both of the forearms. So once again, I can still get my hand in here, but it's a little bit tighter, but I can get a good flush feel. And then you can see up here, now I have that little bit of pinch that's going on here. It doesn't bother me in my armor, especially with the gaskets. So I like to keep this for pretty special events, kind of like my removable thermal detonator one. So these are the ones that are my Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi forearms, again with the functioning, pieces. And then these are the ones that, again, they look exactly the same except for this little extra cut, but this doesn't move. So it's a pretty solid piece, but you can see what that looks like there. It's got all the little cuts and grooves. So, and then with regards to these, they, once they go in, there's a piece of Velcro inside there, so I can actually decide where I want this to be attached. And if that feels about right to me, which it doesn't, we'll say that is, and I can pull the whole arm piece up, and I'm in, and there it is. And I got a little bit more flexibility with this cut. So I can actually flex, and you can see that it just sits nice and flush. So for trooping purposes in ABS armor that we don't want to put that torque on, instead of having that line run up to here and across there, I made a little bit of an angle, and so I have an alternative set of arms. They buckle in, and then I can actually hold my blaster, do what I need to do. I can cross, I can reach out, I can do all types of things. So there it is, a little bit on the arms with the other option as well. You guys can see, and that's it. And both of them are De Novo. They, one thing I will say is, so when this armor comes, when these forearms come, this box, there's actually a mini version of it underneath. I had to cut that off, and then I had to add this extra lip of ABS in here and then cut that open. So I actually welded on a flat plate in there, slurried it, did all that nonsense, put that in there, and then I had to cut out this groove. And then the channel for the zipper went up further. I decided not to do that because I'm not that dependent on it. So once again, I had to reinforce it. So this is a little bit extra thick. And you can see, if you look online, you'll see these little tabs that run inside. That's how they were glued in. This top whole piece was glued in to that bottom piece. So that's what's going on there. And then inside you can see the Velcro little areas where it grabs, and you can see the zipper in there as well. Okay, so that's the forearms. We're gonna move on to the legs. So let's talk about the thighs. So once again, you can see the rubber gaskets. Talk about the knee plates real quick. There's a huge piece of Velcro behind it. And then I stitched on a piece of Velcro onto this so that they can cap in there. You can use Chicago screws as well. Again, I chose to go with the Velcro because what it does is it allows me to put it on, attach it exactly where I need it to. But if I do need to, say for example, pull the thighs up and spread it out, I have an option of shifting this around where with the snaps you're kind of fixed in there. Pretty straightforward. These are beautiful piece of work. The way everything is set up, all you have to do is figure out what you want your sizing to be and cut that angle. This sits in its groove. The clips are perfect. So one thing again about this is it's this. In the screen ones, this moves. These open up. Mine are fixed so that you don't get that, because again, I don't want ABS moving and flexing like that. It just doesn't have the strength and durability to do it. So a lot of people who want to build something, they're like, hey, I'm going to be completely 100% screen accurate. You're actually hurting yourself in doing that. So this is fit in and glued in there for me. Now, there's something that you will see inside. You'll see this. So for me, what I did was I put on a heavy duty piece of webbing here, and then I attached my webbing and my buckles in there, and there's 2 buckle snaps. And the way the movie armor works is that buckles up into 2 straps that are hanging off of the torso. We'll get into that in a second. Mine doesn't hang off of the torso. The next piece is, of course, on this thigh is the holster. So let's talk about this holster, because the one that comes with De Nuovo is absolutely stunning. But you can see once again where that hangs in there. And so I got 2 pieces of this holster right here for us. So this is the holster that is on this particular thigh. So this is from Dan. It's got a resin piece on the bottom, and then it's got 3 layers. It's got the bottom layer, you can see it, and then the aluminum has got 3 layers on top. So there's the bottom flat aluminum layer, well, there's the resin layer, bottom flat aluminum layer, then the middle strip, and then this top piece here. It's an exact match to the De Nuovo. The difference is this is solid resin. And this being solid resin, it actually does not have the groove so that you can mount your pistol, the SE44C, on this. But the screws are all accurate. So, you know, you paint it and then you put the screws in, and this is exactly what it looks like. And if you put it on the armor, you can't tell that it's not a functional holster. It's very nicely cast. So if you're not planning on carrying a holster, or for example, if you're an executioner and you're not gonna have a pistol, not a lot of the First Order had the pistols, so you're good to go on this. It's absolutely stunning when it's on the armor. If you are going to mount a pistol on there, this is an absolutely beautiful piece of work, and it works phenomenally well. The pistol just goes in and clicks, and that's it. There's no risk of it popping out at all. I may, just for my own purposes, put on a little piece of magnet on my pistol, so once it's in there, it's just clutched in. Not necessary, but I'm not sure. I haven't made my decision yet on that. But I highly recommend this this holster from Dan. It's just a really, really nice addition to it. One thing I will say to you is, as you get ready to mount this, the mounting screws are in 2 different places. So originally when I had this on, I put in holes that are a little bit further apart than what came with Dan. It doesn't matter because it'll cover it. So you're good to go on it. So you can pop it on and off, and I've got a couple of suits of First Order armor now. So I, you know, if I do need to put the holster on something else, I can always put this one back on. Because as you can see together, they're absolutely stunning pieces of work. So they're both really, really nice pieces of work. So let's get to a part that's really important on this armor, and that's this belt. So I had brought up this belt to you guys before, and this is the same belt I made that you attach your belt boxes to. I just made one for my undersuit, and what I did was I created this little tab with these 2 little buckles that my thighs attach to. The reason for this is I don't have the strength that urethane has in my ABS, and I don't want that weight and torque being put on the armor. So the thighs will attach to the torso will attach over your shoulders, and you're putting a lot of weight and torque in it. And if you're not putting weight and torque in it, you will when you move. And so that pull and push is gonna have to give someplace. So when you separate those thighs, now the movie armor, it works great because like I said, they're all glued in, heavy duty glued in, and they just hold, and that's all there's to it. And sometimes you're hitting the ground 20, 30, 40, 50 times. In the Rogue One armor, I remember one day we were over 60 times we hit the ground. That armor just, takes a beating, it takes a punishing. Most of us can't hit the ground more than once in our armor, and it's going to blow apart. So having said that, once I buckle this in and very snug around my waist, the thighs hang independently off of these two straps. They hang independently off of my waist, so they're separate. So as my torso moves, the thighs aren't dependent on the torso armor. They're dependent only on my waist, so they can stay stationary and I get a little bit extra flexibility. And that's one advantage that we have. In actuality, I would have probably preferred that on my stunt armor as well, because it would have just given us a little bit more ability to torque and move our body. But at the same time, you lose a little bit of uniformity in the way that armor is supposed to stand. So it's up to you guys. If you do go with the system, which I do recommend, make sure you are adjusting your thighs so that it sits appropriately on your body when you're attaching it to your thigh armor. So what I normally do is I know exactly where I need to go. I put it on, and I lengthen it out, reach in there, put it on, and then crank them up, and then I get the thighs to stand nice and even so that the curves come down and they meet in the middle between your legs nice and even. You're not cranking one up so one thigh is above and below the other one. And if you're adding a pistol to the right thigh, the weight of that pistol might drag it down a little bit, so you can crank that side up a little bit more and just give it a little bit more help. So that's how the thighs attach, and then we'll get to the shins. The shins, I add this little piece of extra Velcro. They're all attached together when you wear it in the other armor, so that the lines and grooves all are nice and even on them, so that there's no play. You don't have to put that Velcro in. The shin will rotate, but you will get that awkward look. You'll get that weird gapping if the shin comes up and does that. And they had that in the movie, so it's not like it's inaccurate. You can see it. Sometimes their knee guards are hanging over their shins, or they're pushed up on their thighs. But we want to get that ideal uniformity that goes on with regards to how our legs and arms and everything look. Okay, so belt system, and I made it of that same heavy duty belt material, because I know it's not going to give. It's not going to bow down and let, as you heat up, as your body temperature heats up, you're not having the belt slip and melt or bend or whatever is going on with it. Not melt, but you know what I mean, soften up. So it keeps it nice and sturdy. Okay, so that's the legs. Let's move on to the shins. Let's talk about the shins. These are quite nice, I have to say. They're a little bit different than the screen ones, and they have this groove at the bottom that I never saw on any of those. I love this addition. I think it's absolutely awesome that they did this. So there's a channel, once again. It fits perfectly in there. You glue it in, your greebly goes on. This is a sticker just like it was. Some people remove this and they put mesh behind it. Free to do that, no problem. I have the Velcro inside where it'll fix my gaskets to it. And then here's the thing, look at how it sits. So in order for me to get in, I gotta really pry this thing. So what I did was I put a piece of Velcro up here to keep this thing uniform, but how far can you really go before you crack and snap this thing? So you have to be really careful getting into it. Once you get into it, I kind of don't need this Velcro, but I put it in there to keep a uniformity in how I wear my armor. And of course, then with the left calf, you have these two, what they're called Kit Kats. They go on this side. It's basically the same thing. The two Kit Kats go on it. I'm going to use the other shin to display this, but I have 4 sets of spats out here. And let me tell you what we have going on here. These are the spats that come with the Denuo Novo kit. They're quite nice. They're actually exceptionally nice. I built these a little bit differently than normal. I put the Velcro here on this side, and I'll explain why I did that. And I kept a flush, extremely flush greebly set up there. The reason for that is because I don't want this catching on something and getting yanked off and breaking off my spats, or just breaking itself. And also it's a little bit more Western style, old cowboy style. Like today when you see like guys wearing spurs, we wear the buckles on the outside, but cowboys used to wear the buckles on the inside. And because they would lift their foot up and cross it on their leg, and they can reach and get into the inside of their leg a lot easier than they could to the outside. So I can literally put my almost entire suit of armor on myself. And then when I do, I can bring it to the inside and I can align this and just put the Velcro in, and then I have a nice flush setup going, okay? These are pretty much identical to these in the way that they're made. I just put them together differently. And let me show you what screen ones are like. So these spats are actually urethane spats. I'm going to give you guys a little display of how urethane works. So you see on this one and on this one, I've got this little ring on the inside. Just ignore that for right now as I open this up. But this urethane spat is built exactly like the other one is. It comes around, there's a little overlap here that's glued together, and then comes here. And then this piece here has got a little piece that goes underneath that greebly, which the greebly or the clip attaches to. And then the snap is underneath. So I can grab that and unsnap it and not put any torque on it. So there's the snap and there's the snap there. So that snap stays flush, it goes in there, and you snap it and you're good to go. Okay, so let's unsnap it. Well, look at the difference between the urethane. Okay, this is urethane. I cannot do that with this. If I do this, I'm gonna start getting my cracks there, and you don't wanna do that. So I get into this very carefully, but it's nice and easy. Where with this one, I just open it up, put it around, snap it, and it's done. So these are from Dino in Germany, and these are, I wish the whole armor was built like this because it's urethane is just amazing. It's not, it's ABS, so we have to do with it what we can. This was always one of my worries with regards to armor. So for those really neat little troops, I keep the urethane ones and the removable thermal detonator and all those little fancy like forearms that move up. I just love the way they are and awesome. But I will say, with regards to these, it's pretty darn awesome. I mean, they did a great job on it. So now let's talk about how this works. Okay, so let's take a look at this Shin. So ABS is very thin, okay? So if I use that, I get play. So what I did was, you can go to any hardware store, and you get basically a nice little, let me see, round piece of weather stripping. Usually comes in 2-bar strips, and you cut it down the middle, and you just use one ring of it. That makes it flush within this groove, so that when I do put my spats on, I get this nice little flawlessly flush presentation, and it doesn't move, and I get that nice clean look, and it fills that gap. If I didn't put that gasket in there or that weather stripping, this would play around and swing around, and also keeps it in place. The screen ones, there is a wide piece of webbing that's underneath here, and it comes down, it's glued to the Shin up here, and it's glued to the spat, and the spat is perfectly on there, and it doesn't move, and it's just flushed on like that. There's no way to replicate that without putting that little gasket in there. So then you get this beautiful, nice, clean look to it. And it's the same thing with the urethane spat. So if I take the urethane spat and I unsnap it, this one, I remove the lip. So I had to create the lip for it. So you put it on here and you snap it together, and there you go. And the front line is aligned, all of that is aligned. So you get that really beautiful, clean, it looks like it's been glued in type of a look, the way the movie ones are. And if you see it, the whole leg, everything, spats and are all attached. You just slide into it, they pry everything open, boom, 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 and then you're good to go. So that's kind of where that's at. With regards to the boots, these boots are from Imperial Boots. For me to say that these are exact to the movie is an understatement. They may very well be the boots in the movie. All I can say is I did see Imperial Boots there. So if you guys are going to get boots, Imperial boots is definitely the way to go. And they're also the Rogue One boots. So I know that for a fact. And I'll just go ahead and leave that at that. So Imperial Boots does a really nice job with their stuff. So I'm just kind of shoving this in there for you guys to see how that sits. But once it's on, you can see this is a nice, clean looking line. And that's how that's supposed to look. Okay, so that's the story with the boots and the spats and the shins. Okay, guys, so the last part of this is, let's go through the undersuit. I've gone through a couple of different variations, but this is the undersuit that you can get a couple of places. It's got the built-in shorts. I have a set that has a separate set of shorts. You can just order shiny shorts online and stuff like that. This Stormtrooper undersuit, I believe, even Imperial boots, and all of them have this. This is a nice way to go. I had a set. It was very different than this, and I don't know what happened. The shiny short part of it tore. And then that kind of turned me off. And then I got a separate pair of shorts that I would wear over it, and that worked out great. But then they went back to this material, and I forgot who it was that I got it from. But anyway, this is the best way to go, especially if you want higher levels of approval, because you won't get the wrinkles. With separate shorts, they got to be really snug, but you will still get wrinkles in it. So this is just a standard undersuit with the built-in shiny shorts. Again, like I said, I think you can get it at Imperial boots, Stormtrooper undersuit, a couple of places. I think Trooper Bay has it, so a couple of places. I'm not really sure. You guys got to just do is Google and take a look at it and go from there. If you do want to get a pair of shorts made, Geeky Pinks, she's awesome. She does a great set, or you could just order them on eBay. You're gonna have to do a little bit of looking. So you saw on the forearms and biceps, as well as the thighs and shins. The gaskets, I want to go over a couple of options. Geeky Pinks is a 501st member and probably one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. So Geeky Pinks is definitely the way to go. It's going to be a very breathable, soft fabric gasket that you can wear. Mine is actually attached to another suit, and I can't get to it right now, so I don't have it to display. But also she makes the harness system that you don't need a belt. You can attach your thighs right to her harness system, and then the gaskets attached to the harness system. So it's quite nice. And the gaskets are phenomenal quality, and they last. So you cannot go wrong with Geeky Pinks. Let's go to what comes with the Nuo Novo. The Nuo Novo's gaskets are awesome. They're just simple cloth ribbed, and they'll look great. So they're going to make the armor look good. You might have to size them a little bit, so depending on who you are, they don't get that super baggy look to it. They seem a little bit wide for me. They're quite nice, and the harness system, or I should say the shoulder system in it, is built the way they were. It's got a buckle in the front. I got Velcro everywhere, guys. It's got a buckle in the front, and then basically like a jacket you slip into, and then it all just slides down. So your biceps slide up on it. Everything is one piece. That's pretty much the way that you want to go. So that's the Nuo Novo option. So it comes with the kit. So if you don't have gaskets, you're ready to go. You put the armor together, you get your shoes, you get your neck seal. The Nuo Novo's got that great neck seal. You've got this, and you're good to go. If you want to upgrade, you go to Geeky Pinks. She's awesome. There's also Jim Lau. So I have Jim's as well. So these are the cloth fabrics that, or gaskets, I should say, that look like they're rubber gaskets. And they're a lot like Geeky Pinks. They're very, very nice. They just have a little bit shinier look to them. I really like these a lot. I have them on a suit that I have. They're very, very comfortable. So this is the part for the thighs, but the jacket on it is, again, very accurate. This is, large back strap. You put it on. and you come and you have this buckle up at the front, just slides in and you buckle up and it goes here. What I did with mine is I added a strap here to keep them from sliding up. So it's kind of like a thumb loop, and then there are these little straps that I had added that go down to the belt. So it's under the arm, it's at the bottom of the pit, and it goes underneath the belt. The way a lot of them were done is they would come down and there were snaps, and they would actually snap to the torso armor. I didn't really see the need to do that. So what mine do is, instead of coming on the outside of the torso armor and snapping, they go on the inside, they go down, and then they strap to my belt. So kind of helps keep the belt up a little bit, but as well, it kind of keeps that armor flush. And then, of course, then there is the my rubber ones that you can see. And what I did with these is I actually split them so that this piece is separate, or else it was just long and it's rubber. It's a little bit less comfortable to wear than them being jointed, because they're separate. If not, it's just one long giant tube of rubber that comes down and it becomes cumbersome. These are very comfortable for me to wear, so it just depends on what troop I'm doing, what I feel like doing. I've got one suit of armor that's already set up with the rubber gaskets that I leave for. That's what I do with that one, and then the other one I go with the shiny set and so forth. The Denuo Novo one is awesome. You're good to go. One thing is, just so that everybody's aware, these don't have a seam. So it's very difficult to replicate that with the cloth ones. So if you look at, for example, the Denuo Novo or the Geeky Pinks or Jim Lau's, there is a seam and there's nothing you can do about that. The best way to do this is angle it so that it is inside back on your thighs. Same thing with the arms, inside back, so that from the outside it looks seamless. For the higher levels, for Centurion and so forth, you won't make it because they require it to be seamless, which is strange to me because no one other than these rubber ones that I was very lucky to come on makes a seamless gasket system. So FISD is going to have to figure out how to make that work. So that's the undergarment situation. So we're going to move on to the blasters and so forth. All right, so let's talk about the blasters. Currently I'm working on building an F11D, which is the heavy version of this, which is actually 20% larger as well. So there's the F11, and then there's the SE44C. So there's many ways to put all of these things together. Everyone's got their opinions. Again, like with the whole suit of armor, everybody's got their opinion on it. For this one, because I'd already built it, I removed the box that was underneath and I put my battery box there, which is just a 2032 battery, and I put a working light in there so that I can just turn it on and off from the bottom, which is right here. This was already built. I'm going to be building another one. I saw a great one that a fellow Legion member made, that magazine would come out, and when you would click it in, the light would automatically turn on. Just absolutely stunning. So there's that. It's not mandatory to have the SE44C for your kits. The only thing that they ask is if you do make them, no print lines. If it's a 3D printed one. If it's resin printed, it'll be a lot easier. If it's 3D printed, you don't need to do that. You need to have to get rid of this stuff. And you can see the screws that are there. That's what clicks into the holster on the thigh. You can also have your F11 holstered as well. I don't really like to do that because it's too heavy to do that. There's some debate and discussion going on with regards to the F11, personally, that I'm involved with on FIST. I'm going to give you guys my opinion. Love everybody and their opinions on a lot of this stuff, but I'll give you guys mine on it. The F11D for the higher levels has to be, other than actually being a blaster that functions, has to have functional features. So let's just go through it real quick. So it needs to have a forward stock that moves. It needs to have a front light that operates, and then these lights need to operate. So what I did with mine is I went as close to what I would think would be functional, like in a military sense. I put a button in here, right here, and one button right here that are hidden. And so what that does is it allows me to click this button and turn it on and off, as well as when it's on, I can use this to turn on that front light. But if I leave this on and I click this back one off, it shuts the entire system off. Okay. And so what I have going on with this particular build is my battery is placed in here, and I only pull this out when I need to change the battery. I don't need to take this to turn it on and off and so forth. So you have to have a, for the upper levels, you have to have these lights functioning, this light functioning, and you have to have this. This is the Force Awakens and Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker version. There is some slight differences, and there's a heavy debate going on right now that I'm going to be championing. They made a set of blasters, and then they needed new blasters, and the new blasters came with some different features in them. So for example, there's 2 holes that are drilled in the top here. Some of them were missing the charging handle that's here, as well as this little setup here. That's a little bit different. I chromed out the fixtures as we see fit. One of the debates that's, oh, and by the way, this rear sight on the new ones is round. The problem with this debate, and I'm holding my guns to this literally, is that when you have, say for example, I don't know the numbers, but 25 of these and 25 of the new ones, they're saying, well, the new ones are going to be what we're going to establish. I said, well, but you can't do that because you have actual characters with speaking lines in prominent positions holding this blaster. And one of the things that came into debate is this little piece back here. So there are many variations. There is chrome or silver without a ring, silver with a white ring, silver with a black ring, white with a white ring. They're all present. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because as you guys are building towards your builds, let's say it's a Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker, you may want to take into consideration if you want to make these variations, round, you know, this variation, these holes up there, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm literally going to hold my ground on this one because it's present and it is screen accurate, and I've posted more than I can even begin to tell you, substantiating mine and substantiating what we stand on. So what I did was I created a bunch of options for this. Okay. So here are the variations. Okay. But I'm still keeping this one on there. That's what I want. It's a small ring. There's an example of one that's white with a small ring. And then the rest of them have these larger rings like this. So here's the silver. Well, here's the silver. Here's your silver with black. Here's your silver with white. And here's your white with white. And this is all visible on screen. I am holding this, and this is going to be my blaster for Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi. You may get roadblocked on it for going to the advanced levels, but I'm fighting for that right now because that has to be the case. So for FISD and 501st Legion, we can't pick and choose what we think. We're not going to run and find some obscurity and say that there was an anomaly over here and now you have to make that canon. That's not what is going on here. I want to make sure that with regards to the blasters, we are understanding where we're guiding people and how they're going to be building it. So my take on this is if you build a blaster like this, and this is a quite nice blaster, if you build a blaster like this, there are some additions you're going to have to do. For example, like the Picatinny rail. That's fine. You can add that Picatinny rail. You can take it on and off. If the blaster was completely different, I'd understand it, but it's not, and it is present, and it is prominently present. So this is the one area that I'm going to be holding my ground on, and here are your options and variations for your approvals. I would recommend you guys, if you're going to do Force Awakens, to build it like this. If you're going to do Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker, you do the white with the white, the round tabs, then drill the 2 holes, put the Picatinny rail on it. Do whatever it takes and not get involved in that headache until that issue is resolved. But I'm going to hold my ground on it. So those are the two blaster options. You guys, good luck with everything. So finally, since I did bring in the Executioner, I want to go over the Executioner axe. This was beautifully done axe. I had the axe built for me by Brian in Southern California Garrison. The axe actually opens and closes. I have fixed mine to stay open, but I can change it at any time. I put a couple of tabs in here that keep the clamps from opening. And obviously the reason for that is because I have the cables in there for it to light up and the wires to stay nice and tight. And so what I did was, once I mounted the wires, I painted the wires gray so that only the tips will glow and you don't see any of the other glow through it. And then it was very, very difficult, but I had to have a hollow box made, this particular box. And then I had to wire up the entire system in there and run the wires through here so that they're hidden, and then punch a hole through here and put the button in so that when I hit it, it lights up like this. So there's the Executioner axe. It's full size, and it's kind of a neat little thing. Once you bring it out, everybody goes, oh my God. And of course, you can buy these on eBay. Be very careful when you're sizing it, when you're cutting the tips of these things. You want to make sure that they're sealed back up, or else they will fade after a while and they'll flicker, and not in the good way that you want. But this thing has 3 modes, so when you're pushing the button, it can flicker slower, or be off. So I have it set up to where I like to keep it nice and straightened on. So like I said, there were some reinforcements that we had to do. Some of the parts needed to be printed in resin, and then the actual piece that goes down, it's a pipe, so it's nice and solid and sturdy. And there is the Executioner axe. Since it's one of my favorite armors, I kind of felt like since we did actually go over the TLJ and Executioner helmet, I had to bring that in just to display that piece as well. We touched a little bit on Force Awakens, but that is the TLJ and TROS, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, and the Executioner armors that we went through. Let me just make this clear to everybody. There is a tendency for people to want to build something extremely accurate. That won't work with this stuff. With the original trilogy armor, you can do that, but we all choose to upgrade it a little bit so that it can actually survive the rigors of what we do when we're trooping, when you're marching in a parade, or when you're bending down to pick up kids and see stuff. You gotta remember, on those movie sets, the original trilogy, if something happened to the armor, they took it off, they put gaffer's tape on it, they painted it, and once it broke, and that's all there was to it. Our armor has to survive, and it has to survive looking really, really good. The new era armor, First Order armor, Rogue One armor, Purge Trooper armor, clone armor, all that stuff is a very, very heavy duty urethane armor that's strapped together very, very securely, very thick webbing, metal parts, things like that. So if you're building your armor, my suggestion to you is this: build it so that it fits you, cut it so that you can move in it, still stay within obviously an accurate aesthetic, but build it so that you can function in it. Build it so that you can have some fun with it. And as you're making, or you're looking at modifications, say that I did or somebody else has done, there's a lot of great builders out there. As you're making these modifications, make sure that those modifications work for your body type. It might work for me, but it won't work for you. Shorter troopers are going to have a little bit different cuts in their armor than, say, a tall trooper will, or a heavier trooper versus a thinner trooper. So the whole point on this is, don't get caught up in what you see as being accurate or inaccurate. You want to build accurate, but you have to build accurate so that it's functional for you. So that's why I pointed out certain things on the armor, like shoulder tabs, and the actual seams not opening, being fixed, that kind of stuff. Okay, so if you guys have any questions regarding that build, I'm easy to find. You can just message me. I'm more than happy to help you guys. If you are a actual member of the 501st Legion and the 1st Imperial Stormtrooper Detachment, the builds are on there. There's a lot of great builds. Great guys building great stuff. They give great advice. Anyone that is running the 1st Imperial Stormtrooper Detachment, any of the DOs and stuff like that, they're phenomenal people. They'll help you out. They'll point out specific builds, and just a great community of people. So we'll help you guys build that stuff. Anybody that's already a member there, that's got one of these new kits, it's not that hard to build. It's just time. It takes a lot of time. So don't be afraid of it. First order scared the hell out of me when I was starting, but now it actually is one of the funner builds. Enjoy your build, have fun, long live the first order.